we do that?
Didn't Rob say that's illegal?
I don't know. Did he? You might have read it.
Just have to
Well,
disclosure,
the
right?
paragraph.
What's
You
that?
can do it, but you have to disclosure.
There you go. So there's at least, I'll just talk. There's three things I want you to remember. There's, is it legal? Is it ethical? And I want to add a third one on. Is it practical? Right? And the practical one, to me, is really the key. We might be able to do something legally. We may be able to do something ethically. But if it creates a cloud to where somebody challenges it, guess what? You get to defend yourself legally or ethically or otherwise. Anybody, I won't have you say which one, but have any of you been involved in either professional standards and arbitration, small claims, or anything? Just us?
Years ago.
Years ago. How fun.
All the leadership, that's all.
It's not, especially with the guy who walked.
Wait, I want you to hear this, Rick.
What?
I want you to hear this. I asked, how fun?
Oh, yeah, all right.
What does it typically do? I mean, do you sleep well at night? Or do
Oh,
you?
no, he did not sleep well.
Yeah, you tend
And
to
he
like.
thought that it was just a nuisance. I mean, it was such a simple thing, but it turned into something even worse.
Yeah, yeah. The point is if you haven't been through this, if you're not careful, it's just a matter of time before you do. And it's not a fun process. You tend to stay awake at night and obsessing and going over and, well, oh my gosh, did I forget something? And then to go into either a court proceeding or a professional standards or into an arbitration. It's just a pain. And you may eventually prevail, but at what cost? You know, try and do things right. So to Rob's question, which was kind of a rehash of Curtis Bullock's thing, was if you had a buyer that wanted to put an offer on multiple properties, one more time, I won't forget. Taylor.
Taylor made.
Taylor, you get your client under contract with Cheyenne's property, right?
Okay.
And, you know, you also went under contract with these two. Now what's the problem? Can your buyer afford all three of them?
Don't
Typically?
I disclose all three of them before we go under contract? Like as a
Okay, but if you did, let's get to really practical stuff. If you disclosed that, how likely are they to go under contract with you in this market? This is the problem, right? And this is the rationale we get from agents all the time. Well, but if I don't, then, right? But that's not adequate, right? Are there things you can do to sweeten it? For sure, there's ways to structure and say, hey, listen, we're making an offer on multiple properties. If you go under contract with us first, here's an incentive, right? We're willing to do this, right? There's ways to sweeten it. I don't want to go into all the details of that, but you're absolutely right. If we want to stay clear so that we can sleep well at night, then we probably should disclose. We're making offers on multiple properties, right? The problem comes twofold. One, legally, there's this doctrine of fair dealing, right? In any time you enter a contract. And if you went in with the intention of not fair dealing, would that be hard to establish if you made an offer on 3 houses and you can only perform on 1? Is it possible that the other 2 sellers could say, I've been financially harmed, right? Because I forewent other offers because I thought you were the guy? Yeah, it's very easy to see where people can connect the dots and you will find yourself in litigation, right? The other point is the code of ethics, right? We as realtors subscribe to the code of ethics, and it says basically that you will be honest and transparent in your dealings. You will not hide things pertinent to a transaction. So you're the agent, you know they're putting offers on, and they said, well, you know what, we can't afford all 3, we're only gonna be able to buy 1. Now are you complicit? Yeah, you are, right? This doesn't have to be a tragic thing, we just have to be better at, 1, addressing the issue with that buyer that wants us to do that, say, you know what, legally, if I allow you to do this, you're putting yourself in jeopardy, right? Somebody could literally sue you for damages, right? It's not uncommon, does happen, can happen. I would not put you in that situation. Plus, not only does the division require, but my code of ethics requires that I be honest, and I can't really represent you that way. And a lot of times, people like that will be like, okay, I get it. What else can we do? Now we've moved on past this potential problem, okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
So if you're in that situation and you do disclose it, does it have to be in writing?
It's a good question. What do you guys think?
Yes.
I love that. Say it louder.
Everything has to be in writing.
It doesn't have to be, but it should be, right? If you want to use it as a defense, you better dang well have it in writing. And yes, disclosure when we're dealing with contracts, anything that you do on the contract because of statute of frauds has to be in writing. Okay?
Via text doesn't count.
What's that?
Via text doesn't count.
That's correct. Why?
Well.
This is a good question.
They don't go through all the time.
Okay, they don't go through, may not hold up in court, but why? There's a more fundamental reason.
Just for me personally, I think an email is a lot easier to pull up even if you deleted it.
Even an email.
You could
It's
print
not
email.
legally binding.
Why?
It's not in the contract.
Who's the contract between?
The buyer and the seller.
The buyer and the seller. Are you either one? So it doesn't matter what you say. You can say anything you want. It has no, it has literally no bearing, right? Because the contract's between the two, and they have the responsibility to disclose to each other. Now, we participate in that, but we have to get the appropriate party to make the disclosure, right? Okay, that was that. So, the moral of the story with this one is, when in doubt, disclose, right? If you ever have a question about a situation like this, come talk to Rob, talk to myself, talk to Ken Avery. All right, I wanted to get to this one. There was an article recently in the Salt Lake Realtor magazine, and it had a few topics. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go to one for sake of time, but it says the buyer due diligence checklist. How many of you, I want honesty here, how many of you read that from top to bottom?
What is it? Sorry.
The buyer due diligence checklist.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How recently?
Just yesterday in a group.
Yeah, that's only because let me just read to you the opening portion of this section. I'm not going to read the whole section, but it says, I know of one attorney that has successfully defended real estate brokerages on more than one occasion with motions for summary judgment using this important form. What is the motion for summary judgment? Anybody been to court? Not you, Rick. You're there weekly. What is the motion for summary judgment? So you go into court, right? You kind of make your first pleading. Here's the complaint. Here's our response. Our response typically, if we're going to use this, is we say, Your Honor, the buyer signed this buyer due diligence form, basically created by the Division of Real Estate, blessed by the UAR. They signed it voluntarily, willingly, and it says that they are aware that they're responsible for X, Y, or Z. We would like a motion for summary judgment. It's called dismissal. We don't even go through the court proceeding. And that's what Curtis is pointing out here. Our own attorney, Sam Bell, I've had this discussion with him, and he's used this as well. I was at a UAR conference a couple years back, and they had a panel of attorneys, real estate attorneys, who deal in this every day. And the first thing they said is, get your buyer due diligence signed. And of course, the follow-on was, it's your get out of jail free card, right? There's other issues, relationships, and how we deal with the public that are still of concern, but you take yourself largely out of legal jeopardy by having this signed. And this is what I want to talk about briefly today. Now, I know you're not all good at taking notes, so I gave you a highlighted, oops, there's two there. A highlighted copy. Would you just pass those out for me? A highlighted copy to kind of demonstrate some of the things that I think we should articulate to people. We started off the meeting by saying, why do people hire us, right? Because they have fear, and you said because we have knowledge and experience. Do we really demonstrate it? I'm going to segue for 1 second here for a tactical problem we have. We live in this wonderful age of technology, right? We have wonderful things like DocuSign or .loop, electronic signatures. What's the problem with that, Lou? What's the problem with using electronic signatures?
Could be a lot. If the person is, I have a client who I brought my laptop to DocuSign, like a seller.
Yep.
And then when we have a problem at the closing, she told me, well, I didn't know what I was signing. I just signed.
Wow, have we ever heard that before?
Yep. And
I didn't know what I was signing.
Yeah, and so the from there on, I never used, like, especially for a lot of clients who's not high tech, I actually have the wet signature.
Yep, that's certainly a solution. We don't have to be that severe in it. I would say this. I just know, we were joking about this the other day, right, Rick? You send out a 7-page document for a client to sign, and within 30 seconds, it's back in your email all signed. Did they read it? Of course not. They didn't read it. They went to the top where it says, start signing. Go here, click, 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 it's signed, right? Let's take a step back here for a second. One of your fiduciary responsibilities as an agent being licensed by the state is proper care, right? It's a pretty big term, but I guarantee you the Division of Real Estate looks at proper care as, did you explain to your client what they were signing? So we have two issues. Do you want to get in trouble with the Division of Real Estate administratively? The legal side says adults who sign documents should know what they're signing. And then there's the third part, which is the practical side, which is if you don't do those things, you may prevail. The division may not beat you up. Contractually, it's still legal and binding. Is that person a fan of yours? Not at all. They become a negative walking billboard. All right, you can go read about studies about people that have had negative experiences. They tend to interact with more people, and they interact with more people, and it really is a bad configuration. So what I wanted to do is make sure that, one, good policy would be anytime you work with a buyer, right, part of your introduction email, simply say, I'm going to send you a number of documents electronically, right? I want you to make sure that you read them and respond to me with any questions before you sign, right? It's pretty hard at that point if something goes sideways for them to come back and say, well, gosh, Cheyenne, you didn't tell me what was in the documents. And I go, I tried, right? I even sent you a specific email saying I'm going to send you a lot of electronic signatures. It's going to be very easy to just click, but I want to make sure you read through and call me with any questions or email me back with any questions. It's really hard for me at that point to claim that I didn't try and get you to read. Can we force people to read? Of course not. You can't. If we sit down with people, right, which hopefully we're doing with our buyers because we're trying to establish a relationship, and buyers are not point transactions, they're a revenue stream, right? So we want to treat them right, we want to make them comfortable, make them feel like we're the professional. How many of you have a buyer folder with your documents and highlighted areas and things that you're going to make sure you cover with your buyers? You should, right? One, if you can plot that down on the desk, it looks like to them, they're like, oh my gosh, they know their documents, they have a process, you're going to give them a copy for them to take home and read, and you're going to make sure you hit the key points. So again, you can go point back to that. Remember when we sat down and met, and I went through the document with you, and I hit the key points, and I gave you a copy as well, and then you signed it electronically? You can't really claim that you didn't know what you were signing. Which, by the way, legally we have one right now that we're in the middle of litigation with, and that is basically this doctor's claim, and this is kind of comical. He says, well, I didn't know what I was signing. And Sam's response to their attorney was, we find this hard to believe. A man that is highly educated, who deals in contracts every day, did not take the time to read, and if he didn't read, should read, and oh, by the way, the law says that he's still accountable for what he signed. So send us our money, right? Okay, but as we sit down, I think this is probably, outside of the REPC, this is probably the most important document with our buyers, okay? Why? Look at that first paragraph. It's boxed, it's highlighted, it's labeled notice from the company, and part of that paragraph is in all caps. In other words, we're yelling it at them, right? Somebody read me the all caps portion. Anyone?
Buyer is advised not to rely on the company or on any agents of the company for a determination regarding the physical or legal condition of the property.
Yeah. And if that's all you did, if that's all you said to them, we'd be way far ahead, right? But if you look at item number 1, the company and its agents strongly recommend that in connection with any offer to acquire a property, buyer retain the professional services of legal and or tax advisors, property inspectors, surveyors, or other professionals to satisfy a buyer as to any and all aspects of the legal condition of the property. I wanted to ask a question of the group, and I wish I had a bigger group because we'd have more experiences, but in your experience working with buyers, sometimes things go sideways a little bit, right? What are some of the complaints that we see coming back at us from your buyers? No right or wrong answers.
The roof leaks.
Okay.
Furnace just went out.
Fireplace won't start.
Fireplace. Is that it?
About the plumbing.
Plumbing? Yeah. Something's not draining, the water's not working, right?
Cracked foundation.
Yeah. Which is such a joke, right? Sorry, cracked foundation is not a joke. I only say that because my dad was a builder in California. And in California, because of earthquakes and stuff like that, they require you to put steel everywhere. I came up here to go to school, and I'm working for this builder, and he's like, hey, we're going to be pouring a bunch of flat work today. I'm like, okay, where? He's like, right here. I'm like, where's your steel? Where's your pad? And he's like, where are you from? I'm like, California. Right? So any of your flat work in your basement, it's almost guaranteed to crack.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Right?
There's no
Okay,
drain- there's
crack
no-
foundation. I've got my own list. Let me see where it is here. Okay. How about this one?
Oh, yeah.
Your fence is on my property.
Yeah.
Right?
Encroachments.
Encroachments. Anything else? How about this one? Square footage wasn't accurate. You ever had that one? Lou?
We found out there's no drain into the second floor washer.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
Oh, man. Wow.
Drain issues, previous flooding information.
Great.
Oh, there we go. Now we're getting to some good ones.
Because we just had experience with that, didn't we, Rick?
Right?
Radon. Yeah, where do you find radon, by the way?
And
Mountain
everything.
on the hill.
Everywhere,
Everywhere.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Rocks.
Right?
But doesn't it come and go
It does.
at certain
Yeah,
seasons or something?
Well,
When the moon is big, okay.
yeah.
Right? Right?
And if you keep the windows open, it vacates, right?
Yeah.
Any others? Let me see. I'm checking my
Lou said
list.
drugs.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
meth, right? Either the smoking or the production. Mold.
Termites.
Oh,
Termites is, yeah, that's a big one. Ah, you can hear in Utah, right?
nobody told me it
Dairy.
smelled here.
You didn't look around at the yard?
Out-of-state buyer. I bought it, and I came in. I never visited the house,
Well, that's your problem.
and now it's. There you go. Right? What was the other one I just missed? Somebody
Termites.
said termites. Oh, we got one right now on that in the
Yeah.
company. So agent goes in, represents a buyer, and first-time home buyer, and the home buyer's opinion is, hey, I put my trust in you, the agent, you, Century 21. You did not look out for me. Guess what? He signed a buyer due diligence. But guess what he did? Electronic signature, right? Showed up, I clicked, okay, right? And now, he even had a home inspector go out. Home inspector did not catch the termites. He got into the house, he has a major termite issue. Think he's happy? Who does he want to come after? The agent. No, yes,
Always
me too.
deep pocket.
Right? Okay, let me see any other ones. Oh, you didn't tell me about the train, the noise from the train. I wasn't aware that the power lines buzzed.
Doesn't all this happen during due diligence, when they go out there and look at things? I mean, you can't buy an invisible house from Texas if you're coming to Utah. Maybe there's nothing there and he's buying a home.
So I'm coming back to the legal, ethical, and practical. Right? Because of the buyer due diligence, if we get it signed, whether they point and click and didn't read it, are we covered legally? Pretty much, we are. Right? Ethically, and from the division, I should throw a fourth category up there from the Division of Real Estate. So this is yes, we're covered. This, it's a no and a question mark. The division says you have an obligation because of your proper care to make sure that your buyer is aware of what they're signing, that you take the time to explain it to them. Okay? And then the practical one, for sure, no. Are they ever going to use you again? Are you going to tell everybody in their family what a loser you are, what a loser Century 21 is, and propagate that lie because they didn't do their due diligence like you astutely pointed out? Yes. So my point is simply this. Let's have good process. Let's make sure that we're sitting down in that meeting. And I just give you some possible highlights here. I don't think you have to go through every item with them, but there's some certain key ones, right? Let's just go through a couple real quick and then we'll wrap up. Building zone compliance, is that a big one? Right? Is it suitable for its own use? Some people will buy it and they're like, well, wait a minute, it was on 2.5 acres, I thought I could subdivide it. Did you do your due diligence and look into it? Because I'm specifying to you here that it's your responsibility to check that out with the city. Now, are some buyers going to mistakenly say, well, Rick, you're my realtor. I mean, this is what you do every day. You're not looking out for me.
Exactly.
How did we get to that point?
That's exactly what they do.
How did we get to that point, Rick?
By non-disclosure.
Okay, making
Well,
sure
they're
they
not
didn't
going to
read
do
that,
that.
and
Yeah.
you didn't do a good job of saying
Right.
effectively up front, hey, listen, I will do the best to find you a property and to do the best in securing that, but you need to know up front. And I'm going to give you this document. My joke yesterday was, I think they ought to relabel this. They should relabel this the everything that your realtor is not competent in document, right? And therefore, you should seek the appropriate professional. And that's what it says in the first paragraph, right? Yeah,
I
right.
had one that I sold the property to the guy and he bought it based on being able to build a garage,
Uh-huh.
because he seen my garage.
Yeah.
And then he found out he couldn't build my garage on the property he bought. And I said, I didn't tell you you could build my garage on your home. I told you you could potentially do that, but you needed to check that out.
Was he happy?
Well, he wasn't. He was also my best friend.
Notice he said was.
It was. Past tense, yeah. No more Christmas cards.
No more Christmas cards. Anyway, he couldn't build what I had built because and I said, look, read your due diligence addendum that I had you signed. And he goes, yeah, you did. I go, but let's wipe that all off. The fact that I told you, here's a property that has the room, I told you to do what?
Check with
Go
the
to
city.
Sandy City
Yeah.
Building and Zoning on the property, right? He goes, you did.
Yeah, so this is really a function of good, better, best, and that's what I'm trying to drive home today. It's good to be protected legally, for sure, right? It's better if you also are being ethical, and it's the best if you just avoid the issue by your systems and your process from the get-go,
Yeah.
right? There's no winning in saying, oh, I'm protected legally,
Yeah.
because the other ramifications are pretty significant, right? They're going to badmouth you on social media, and it's just really a pain. Okay, building and zoning, rental of the property, right? We get this all the time. Have you ever run across a mother-in-law apartment, whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Non-conforming, right?
Non-conforming.
Apartment attached, but they saw it and then they said that they had renters and we didn't do our job of saying, hey, for instance, in Provo City, any property that we sell down there, you're required to go to the city and get a declaration of what is and what isn't available by way of rents, okay? We call it the People's Republic of Provo, by the way. They force you to do it. Hazardous waste and toxic substances, meth, mold, all these wonderful things covered in there. Radon gas, to your issue, survey and staking. I asked this question of the brokers the other day. How many of you have ever had somebody do a survey of your clients?
I have.
Very rare,
They're
right?
very rare.
Right? I'll share one quick thing with you. I shared this the other day. I sold a property years back out in Saratoga Springs. It was a $500,000 house, nice lot. The house, the lot was more like this, right? And back here they had a trampoline, and the house was pretty tight to the back property line, and there's a vacant lot to the back, right? So we sell it to this buyer's agent, his client out of California, and I think he was an attorney. And a few months later, I get a call from the agent that says, hey, we have a problem. I said, really? What's the problem? He says, the property line isn't where the grass is. The property line goes like that, but the grass line is back here. And I said, that is challenging, right? Let me connect a couple quick dots. What does our seller's disclosure say? A seller must disclose anything that is not readily discoverable by a prudent buyer. Can you discover the property line?
No.
I have a no and a yes, so we've got the bases covered.
I said no.
Can you hire a surveyor?
Yes.
Come on, answer the question. Can you hire a surveyor?
Are you asking me or Greg?
Greg. Can you hire a surveyor?
Yeah.
Okay. So it could be readily discoverable. I mean, it's not hidden. It's not like under a building or something.
I don't know if that's readily, that's involved to hire a surveyor.
And here's where I hope you appreciate me.
You only hire a surveyor though if you suspected that something was wrong with the boundary line.
Really? Because in the purchase contract, 10.2 says you're buying it as is, therefore you really need to pay attention to your due diligence. You go back to section 8.1 and 8.2 and it specifically says, here are things that a prudent buyer should be looking at. Square footage, boundary lines, blah, blah, blah. Get a survey, right? Because you choose not to does not make it not readily discoverable. It's not hidden, right? And in fact, I don't know how it is in the other counties, but in Utah County, you can go and look at the boundary lines of the property. Now, that's not legal, but it gives you a pretty good definition. On this particular listing, I had taken the overhead view from county records, which showed the property line going through the trampoline. I included that on the listing. Do I need to take the buyer by the nose and show them every potentiality that could be wrong with the property? By definition, no, because the contract says its buyer is buying as is, and they and their agent have the responsibility, unless we're hiding something. That's not hidden. We pointed that out to them. Their legal claim went away, right? And by the way, the way this happened was this guy from the big shot from California came in and he went to the property owner behind him and tried to play hardball with negotiating to buy the lot behind because he wanted to expand it. And the property owner behind him basically flew in the bird and said, screw you. You can buy it for another $40,000 on top of what I was selling it for. And that's when this hit the fan, right? So my point is,
I have a question.
Yeah.
With a property line like that, if the house and the property and everything has been there for years and years and years, and nobody's ever adjusted anything on that property line, can you leave it the way that it is because nobody's done anything with it? Is that legal? I mean, maybe you've been there for 25 years and nobody's done anything with it.
yeah, there's some hurdles you have to jump. If you're going to claim adverse possession,
Yeah, that's
right,
what I was gonna say.
you have to not only use it, you also have to do what?
5 years.
Pay the taxes on it.
See,
And guess what?
There's a bigger legal problem with this scenario right here.
Uninterrupted, by the way.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so how do you know whether you're paying already taxes on that property that's above the dotted line?
So you have the lot over here, right? This guy has this. He would have to be delinquent on his taxes. You pay them for him. You must use these, what is it, 6 years, 7 years?
7 years.
7 years, you've got to continuously use the property without interruption.
Right.
Then you can make the claim for adverse possession. So for that 7 years, you had to pay not only your taxes, but his taxes, because that's part of his property.
But what if you've only got the small section? You're not out, I mean.
Doesn't matter, it's all one
trampolines.
tax ID. So you pay the taxes on this, which, are you going to do that?
Okay, so.
Of course not. You're not going to pay the taxes.
So you're
So
gonna
adverse
have to pay
possession
for the
is-
whole thing.
Adverse possession is very difficult to do.
It's practically impossible. And in fact, if you look at some of the churches, right, around the valley, you'll see a lot of them, if they're between two busy streets, what do they have on them? A gate. And guess what? One day out of the year, they'll go and lock that gate. Why? Because then nobody can claim they had continuous use of that thoroughfare, right?
There's another legal problem with this scenario that I don't think really, I don't know how relevant it is either, but it's just to point out, is like the trampoline. If somebody happened to jump on the trampoline and fall on the one
The
side.
other property?
Now you got a legal claim.
Now you're really muddying the
Now
waters.
you're really,
Yeah.
Okay.
Whose property is it? Who installed the
Right.
trampoline? Probably have some stacked liabilities there.
there you go.
So, anyway, we're out of time. I hope you'll take that buyer due diligence document, incorporate some of the highlights when you present it to your clients so that they can't come back. Have good process. I put as my last note on here, we all want longevity in this business, right? It's a good business to be in. Our longevity is based on us being satisfied, right, with what we're doing. You get a few of these, 1 or 2 of these deals, I guarantee your satisfaction's going down significantly. You'll start asking yourself, why am I in this business?
Yeah.
So don't even get there. Have good process, have good systems. Your clients are more satisfied, you avoid the pitfalls, and your business is, on a good track. So appreciate you being here today. If you have any questions about any contracts, always come up to me on the third
Thanks,
floor.
Matt.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Remember that you're.
We're headed to NARAP. You're gonna go with us?